Have you had any personal experience with La Llorona?
Kinda.
Oh, can you tell me about it?
Yes. So I was with my friend Audrey. We were at Santa Cruz River, basically the place that you would see her, and we were taking a couple of pictures. And when I looked at one of the pictures, I saw I might have saw her.
Oh, that is
inside
amazing.
One of the pictures.
Oh, I would love to see that picture. What did you do? What did you do when you saw it?
I just I didn't see it. I just looked in the picture and I saw it, and I couldn't believe it, so I couldn't run my eyes. Then it was true.
And did you show your grandma?
Yes.
And what did she think?
She was the exact same way as I was.
Hidden within the shadows, throughout tales that span generations, monsters exist in many forms. Explore the folklore, embrace its most important lasting features, and delve into information of the unexpected. These are monster myths. What you know about monsters could save a life, possibly even your own. I need you to help me inform the masses. I'm Kephen Sting, and tonight's Monster Myths features La Llorona. Good evening, inconstant viewers. There's a particular supernatural entity that's recently had a spike in popularity. Often the subject of tales, music, and even motion pictures, La Llorona is a tragic ghost story that has woven its way from desert folklore into our global consciousness. And many of you viewers are already aware of its dangers. However, it seems there's a good deal of confusion mixed into this myth. Now, Dead Alive 92 wrote to say, "My mother told me about La Llorona when I was a kid, but I have this cousin that tells it different. Both think they're right. What is the real story?" It's a good question. This is another tale with many variations. Let's see if we can make some sense out of them. Not only are there several variations of this myth, but the ghost goes by multiple names. La Llorona translates from Spanish as the crying woman. In addition, she is often connected to the names the wailing woman, the weeping woman, and sometimes as the woman in white. These are the basics. La Llorona is the ghost of a woman who searches for her drowned children in the river. Story goes, if you come in contact with her, you could pay the final price with your life. Now, this is often considered a myth born from within the Hispanic culture. La Llorona is a prominent figure in Mexican folklore. Many believe this story originated in Mexico during the colonial Spanish invasion during the 1500s. Regardless, it's a tale told to most people as kids, and it's said it was once used to keep children from running around at night and getting into trouble. If the child is caught by the ghost, she'll ask for forgiveness before attempting to drown them in the closest body of water. Now, I happen to be located in the Southwest United States, and over the many interviews I've done, I've found that there are some folks of Hispanic heritage that are pretty spooked out by this ghost.
I am definitely spooked out by ghosts. I don't know if there's anything protecting me, but yeah, hopefully.
Well, my mom told me when I was a kid, I was probably like 4 or 5 years old in Mexico. My mom used to, whenever we didn't behave well, she used to scare us with saying, the Llorona is going to take you.
When I was 8 years old, my parents used to tell me, like, the Llorona is coming from you, because I'll be honest, I got in trouble a lot when I was little. So they were like, you keep like doing like this, like getting in trouble, then Llorona's going to come for you, like grab you. So it was like very scary for me.
And why
I used to have like nightmares.
Really?
Yeah.
What were the nightmares?
Like she was like robbing me and like just like, I don't know. taking me away from my house.
My mom used to tell me stories about her, like basically just to make me afraid of her, but at the same time stronger. Because she would tell me things like, why are you crying? Don't you think Llorona is going to come for you and stuff like that?
I know her since I was a child. It's a bedtime story. Where I come from, I'm from Central America. So for us, plays a big input in all culture. We strongly believe in that and that paranormal type of thing. So yeah.
Well, as a kid, I wasn't because I was a well-behaved well-behaved child, so I wasn't. But I feel like when my friends would tell me about the story, I would get scared of it. But once I would go home, I would forget about it.
I think I was 10 when I remember, and it was my cousins. I have all my cousins in Mexico, and so we have a little campfire at my grandma's house, and we start telling scary stories. And so they would tell me that they would haunt at my grandma's house, and then that's when they told me about the Llorona, that there was this lady that had 3 kids, and she went a little crazy. And at the river by my grandma's house, they said that she went and she drowned her kids and then she herself threw herself off a cliff. And so at night she'll come looking for little kids, saying mis hijos, and she'll take the kids and go drown them in the river again. So ever since then I was scared of her.
Some claim they believe this myth somehow follows them wherever they go, that there's a threat of coming into contact with this ghost no matter the city or town they live in. That's pretty heavy. So which version is the true one? This is one of those myths that is highly dependent upon who is telling it. What this means is that the speaker relaying the myth gets the myth from someone who had heard it from a certain branch of the tale. Sometimes these branches can tell you a lot about the story preferences, the most important themes, and even social concerns and fears. For example, it certainly addresses issues and fears for the consequences of your earthly behavior and the hopelessness of things beyond your control. For our purposes in examining these versions, let's start with the most common. When the speaker is telling the crying woman myth, it's generally set around the time period of the Old West, 1850s or so. Some people place the original date with the Spanish colonials during their invasion of Mexico. Either way, the tale of La Llorona starts with a beautiful girl named Maria. One day she catches the attention of a wealthy gentleman. They fall in love and are soon married. In their time together, she eventually has 2 sons. Later, the husband grows tired of their marriage and carries on with womanizing and drinking. And so the story continues until one night, Maria is walking with her children by the river, and her husband shows up in a carriage. And get this, there's another woman in there with him. To make matters worse, he leans out and talks to his boys, but not to Maria, ignoring her completely. After this, she becomes enraged and takes it out on her children by throwing them into the river. They disappear down the river before she had fully realized what she had done, and so she tries to find them along the bank, but never does. Maria becomes inconsolable. Refusing to eat or sleep, she searches only for her children. Not long after, Maria tragically dies. However, after her death, her apparition begins to appear, crying and wailing along the banks of the river. It is said that she could be seen shifting between the thin trees of the area or drifting along the current of the water in her white gown, now torn and dirty. She is forevermore searching for the bodies of her dead children. In this next version, the lovely Maria has 2 children and a healthy appetite for a wild lifestyle. She resents her children for keeping her from going out and carousing with the locals. So she would leave the children at home alone rather than miss an opportunity to be drinking and dancing. Only one evening she comes back to an empty house. The boys had gotten out and had unfortunately drowned in a nearby river. It was her neglect that had a part in this tragedy. She soon dies, as in the other version, and is sent into her afterlife consequence as a ghost. It's interesting that the setup before her death is different in this telling, but her actions as a ghost are the same. Now, that version might seem drastic, but it's not even the darkest one. But notice how the slightest change in Maria's depiction changes the entire emotional connection to the story. In the first, she is deceived. In the second, she is a selfish protagonist. The third most common version starts with Maria as a young mother of 2 children, only this time she meets a high-class gentleman who dislikes kids from the get-go. Now, it's not clear whether or not he dislikes that she has had children with another man, or simply that he doesn't like kids. He claims he'll never be with her as long as she has children. Somehow, out of desperation, she drowns her children in the river. After this ordeal, to her shock, her fiancé changes his mind and no longer wishes to be with her. She realizes she's done it all for nothing and is last seen searching the waters of the river until her eventual demise. Any of these sound familiar? This particular ghost story has been told and retold countless times. I think this version really emphasizes the difficult decision she had to make between keeping her life with her children or having the life she may have always wanted with this gentleman. Some schools of thought suggest that this myth is subject to being or becoming a mashup of sorts. This is where the myth has merged with some elements of another in order to complete the tale. For example, in this one, La Llorona is recognized as the persona of La Malinche, a slave girl who served Cortez. She learned Spanish to be able to act as an interpreter to him. In addition, she came to favor his side of the battles and was then accused of turning a blind eye to her own people. Unfortunately, she loses favor to Cortez, who ultimately leaves her for a Spanish woman. Stories say that now, after her own death, she cries over the unending tragedy. Now, you can certainly hear the resemblances to other versions, but check this out. One of the oldest tellings I've managed to hear depicted is of a goddess emerging from a giant lake. As she rises, she is weeping for her children, the Aztecs. I'd say that version goes back pretty far. And I wish I knew the story better, but it does give you a sense of how old the crying woman myth could possibly be. So, which depiction of La Llorona have you heard? Is it associated with a local place near you or told around some faraway location? Have you grown up knowing the myth, or is this your first time hearing it? Let's see how the public responds.
I started hearing it from my parents. Supposedly they heard something in the past from her, so I don't know if it's true or not, but I believe in it.
And the stories you hear, like her, she was crying for her kids, and you hear the story like, you hear her crying at night, and then she's kind of looking for children.
Well, I was told that La Llorona is about a woman that lost her children, and she would go around the river screaming, mis hijos, and I think it was because she also lost her boyfriend or this man that she loved, and she was also venging against men when they would go out and out in drink or something, I don't know, or get lost in the forest or something. Yeah.
La Llorona, she actually she grabs men. So she haunts men and she kills men. So it's like, I don't think I will have an issue with her.
We're Guatemalan. So in our culture, the scary lady is La Ciguanagua, because my parents are from Guatemala. So La Llorona is more like of a Mexican, like scary image. So I went to an elementary where most of my friends are Mexican, so they were the ones that told me about La Llorona. And they would tell me like about her, like her legends that she drowned her kids because her husband went with a younger lady, and so as revenge, she decided to drown them. And as soon as that happened, like she instantly regretted, and like her spirit basically like haunts children who don't behave. So usually parents say like, oh, if you don't listen to me, if you don't behave, like Llorona's gonna get you. So usually that's like a disciplining tool that parents like typically use on their kids. So because of the fear, they're like, okay, we'll behave and we'll be much better.
In my country, it's a very, very like famous story. And like all the kids that get in trouble there is like the Llorona's coming from you because you're a bad kid.
Yeah, man. For like a couple of years, I would say it worked. We have also the coco, which is, it will be under your bed, So we have different. But yeah, it does work.
Did it make you behave?
Sometimes, yes. I would say it was scary, as a you don't believe it. I mean, you might see it, you might not. This way, it's in your head, it gets to you.
I don't really believe in La Llorona.
Oh, really? How come?
She's not real. Like, I don't think she's real.
Oh, so
Because I know that they are fiction and that God is there to protect you.
We never believed it, and one time we went to the park at night, we're like, there's this slide that looks like a mountaintop, and we would always come down, and then there's this seesaw where we didn't notice it until like it started going up and down by itself. And then we saw two little kids next to the seesaw. We're like, we counted ourselves. We're like, they didn't come with us.
I think because it's cultural, partially. I mean, you have Bloody Mary that you do, and then also like coming from Latin American countries, you learn about all these, like more like Latin folk tales and stuff like that. Like that's what keeps some of the Latin culture, alive. Learning about the ghost stories of over there, of those countries.
See a girl like suffering a lot for the children, but that's it. I mean, I don't think she's gonna hurt me, but I don't want to meet her.
My dad was telling me about this, with when he was growing up, and his mom was there to tell him about these things that ghosts or spirits can't hurt you physically because they're not there. But only real people and physical people are there, but they can hurt you, and you shouldn't be scared of that.
Well, now you got me wondering what I would do if I was faced with a crying woman. Well, I can tell you this. If I'm driving in the rain and I hear somebody crying as I pass a river, I'm flooring it. There ain't no damn way I'd stop. I mean, it better be my crying I hear, or I'm flipping out. Yeah, I don't do well with ghosts, ever since I wrote Animal Graveyard back in my dimension. But I'll explain that to you at another time. Let's talk about themes, because in these La Llorona variations, each telling evokes a different perception. To start us off, I noticed that the protagonist of Maria in some tellings is a naive mother who becomes weak and is manipulated into her tragic actions. Yet in other depictions, she is burdened by her children, so much so that she leaves them home alone while she pursues her nightly adult entertainment, or worse, which has a lot of significance. This could be interpreted as a cautionary tale, or maybe intentionally aimed to create an uncomfortable kind of sympathy. Each version could utilize these deliberate choices in the storytelling to convey a significant lesson or moral. See, the morals of this character go beyond questionable once she kills her own children. So as much as we sympathize, we can't really relate to such a tragic act. And that's something this myth places in your lap, no matter the variation. When she becomes La Llorona, we recognize on some level that she is paying for her decisions in the afterlife. Forever searching for her children is a demise that can't help but elicit emotional responses from anyone who hears it. There's a couple of other highlights I've found. One is that she is likely to appear around disobedient children. So parents, you better keep that kid in check when you're driving by a body of water, and you don't want a bratty kid ruining the evening for everyone. Now, according to a legend, if you hear the crying woman's wails, even if you don't confront her, it could mean there's grave misfortune coming your way. Some kind of bad luck, kind of like a banshee. But if you see her, know this: La Llorona kidnaps children at night. Sounds like she doesn't mess around either, so I don't recommend trying to taunt her.
La Llorona.
I suspect that throughout North America there are multiple places where this same crying woman myth is said to have taken place, or at least where the apparition is presumed to appear. And who knows, they may all be accurate. An example of this is in El Paso, Texas. Some believe they could hear the crying woman down the Rio Grande River. And there's more. During my recent investigations, I found a location in southern Arizona that not only recognizes the La Llorona myth, but at the exact same time it possesses other long-established myths there too. Somehow, there's a number of myths all originating from the exact same spot. In other words, the myths stack. I believe I've spotted a phenomenon in this Arizona location, so we're making another episode about it all, La Llorona Part 2. So keep your eyes peeled for that one. Now, I want to make sure you see this upcoming episode, so be sure to hit the like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. Oh, and hit the little bell icon next to the subscribe button in order to get a notification each time I upload any new material. These tales continue to represent a side of ourselves, a side we know is there but are afraid to see. Perhaps it's time to open our eyes to them, to face the dragon and conquer our fear. Stay aware out there, for you never know what could come knocking on your door. I'm Kephen Sting, and these are Monster Myths.